If you ask the average Catholic what a spiritual attack looks like, they picture a scene from a movie: flickering lights, shadowy figures, a dramatic, terrifying battle with the devil. But any experienced Catholic priest will tell you the absolute truth. The enemy's most dangerous attacks do not look like a horror movie. They look like a Tuesday afternoon. They look like a sudden, crippling exhaustion that keeps you away from Mass. They look like an unexplainable, bitter argument with your adult child, right after you finally went to confession. They look like a heavy, suffocating dread the very second you try to pray the Rosary. And because it looks so ordinary, most older Catholics completely misdiagnose it. You think you are just stressed. You think you are just getting older or dealing with a rough season of natural anxiety. But here is what many Catholics never realize. If your spiritual life has suddenly felt like walking through wet cement, you might not be going crazy. You might be a target, because the enemy does not attack what is empty. He attacks what is full. The Catholic Church trains her priests to recognize the invisible war that most lay people simply dismiss as bad luck. There are specific, undeniable signs that your sudden struggles are not random. They are a targeted spiritual hit designed to break your faith. And that is why waiting to fix this can become incredibly dangerous. Today, we are going to look at the 7 exact signs that you are under a spiritual attack right now. If you are in your 50s, 60s, 70s, or beyond, I need you to pay very close attention to sign number 3, because it is the exact quiet track the enemy uses to separate older Catholics from the sacraments before their final hour. Stay with me, because you need to know if the heavy burden you are carrying right now is just life, or if it is a spiritual war for your soul. The Catholic Church does not treat spiritual warfare as a polite metaphor. For 2,000 years, the Church has been utterly clear about what is happening behind the veil of this world. St. Paul warns us in Ephesians chapter 6 that we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. The Catechism of the Catholic Church reminds us that the entire history of humanity is marked by a dramatic, hidden battle against the powers of darkness. If you are sitting there thinking, "My life isn't important enough for the devil to care about," you are falling for his greatest illusion. When you start trying to pray more, when you return to confession after decades, or when you simply resolve to be a more faithful Catholic, a spiritual alarm goes off in the unseen world. Before we go deeper into these 7 signs, if you feel comfortable, tell me your age and where you are watching from in the comments. You can simply write Mary, 68, Ohio, or John, 74, Texas. I read the comments, and when I see your names, I remember you in prayer. Sometimes just seeing other older Catholics here reminds us that we are not carrying these hidden battles alone. Now, stay with me, because the next part is where many Catholics misunderstand the teaching completely. We assume that if our life suddenly gets harder, God must be angry with us. We think, "I started praying more and my life got worse. God must be punishing me." But that is a lie straight from hell. The turbulence you feel is not God pushing you away. It is the enemy trying to stop you. Because the enemy does not attack what is empty. He attacks what is full. To understand exactly how this invisible warfare plays out in your daily life, and to recognize if it is happening to you right now, we have to look at what happens when an ordinary Catholic decides to draw closer to God. I think of a woman I will call Catherine. She was 72 years old, a widow, and a lifelong Catholic. After her husband passed away, the silence in her home became unbearable, and she noticed her faith starting to drift. To anchor herself, she made a quiet, simple commitment. She would pray the Rosary every single morning for her adult children, who had long ago stopped going to Mass. For the first 3 days, she felt a profound, beautiful peace. But on day 4, everything fell apart. When she woke up and reached for her Rosary, a heavy, suffocating wave of anxiety crashed over her chest. Her mind flooded with a sudden, dark panic about her finances. Later that afternoon, she called her daughter, the very daughter she had been praying for, and a completely harmless conversation suddenly exploded into the most bitter, hurtful argument they had had in 10 years. By the end of the week, Catherine was physically exhausted. The mere thought of picking up her Rosary made her feel sick to her stomach. She sat in the back of the church that Sunday, completely defeated, and thought to herself, I tried to get closer to God and it ruined my week. My prayers must be making things worse. I should just stop. That is exactly what the enemy wanted her to conclude. Catherine thought she was experiencing a sudden bout of depression. She thought she was failing as a mother. But when she finally stepped into the confessional and told her priest what was happening, he stopped her. He told her she was not failing. She was in a war. The priest reminded her of a truth the saints have taught for centuries. The devil is absolutely terrified of the Rosary. When an older, faithful mother drops to her knees and begins interceding for the souls of her children, hell notices. The anxiety, the bitter arguments, the exhaustion. It was not God pushing Catherine away. It was a targeted, desperate spiritual attack to get her to drop her weapon. Because the enemy does not attack what is empty. He attacks what is full. Have you ever tried to hand your burdens over to God, only to feel the weight of your life instantly double? Have you ever mistaken the resistance of the enemy for the rejection of God? If you have, keep Catherine's story in your mind, because what happened to her perfectly illustrates the exact blueprint for the first 2 signs of an active spiritual attack. The first sign that you are under an active spiritual attack is sudden, paralyzing spiritual exhaustion. You know what normal tiredness feels like. You have worked hard your whole life. But this is entirely different. You have slept enough and you feel fine all day. But the exact moment you sit down to read scripture, or the morning you plan to go to daily mass, a sudden, heavy lethargy drops over you. You physically cannot keep your eyes open. It feels like trying to walk through wet cement. And strangely, if you decide to cancel your prayer time and just turn on the television instead, the exhaustion instantly vanishes. That is not a sleep problem. That is opposition. St. John of the Cross wrote beautifully about spiritual dryness, times when God removes the emotional comforts of prayer to help our souls mature. But a good priest will tell you there is a massive difference between God's purification and the enemy's attack. Spiritual dryness feels quiet. There is a deep, underlying peace beneath the emptiness. But a spiritual attack brings exhaustion wrapped in anxiety, frustration, and the terrifying thought that God is ignoring you. But here is what many Catholics never realize about this exhaustion. It is almost always followed closely by the second sign. The second sign of a spiritual attack is unexplained, out-of-nowhere conflict with your closest family members, specifically occurring right after a spiritual milestone. Just like Catherine in our story, you might have finally gone to confession after months or even years away. You walk out of the church feeling lighter than air. Your soul is completely clean. But the moment you walk through your front door, your spouse picks a bitter fight with you over something incredibly trivial. Or your adult child calls and lashes out at you over a grievance from 20 years ago. This is not a coincidence. The enemy is a sower of division. If he cannot stop you from going to the confessional, his immediate backup strategy is to steal your peace the second you step out of it. He wants you to react in anger so you lose the joy of the state of grace. He targets your family because isolation is his greatest weapon. Do not let him win. The argument might look natural, but the timing is highly supernatural. Because the enemy does not attack what is empty. He attacks what is full. But stay with me, because the third sign is the trap specifically designed for older Catholics, and it is the most dangerous one on this entire list. But here is what many Catholics never realize. The most dangerous spiritual attack does not look like an attack at all. It looks like common sense. We expect the devil to be terrifying. We expect him to push us toward obvious, grave, mortal sins. But when you are actively trying to live a faithful Catholic life, the enemy changes his strategy. He does not come to you with fire and pitchforks. He comes to you disguised as a highly reasonable, practical friend. And that leads us to sign number 3, the sudden, calm, and highly logical urge to abandon a spiritual commitment because it feels too stressful. It sounds exactly like this. I am getting older, and trying to make it to daily Mass is just too hard on my body. God understands. Or, I don't need to go to confession this month. I'm being too hard on myself. I need to focus on my mental health instead of all this religious obligation. It feels like wisdom. It is disguised as self-care. And that is what makes it absolutely lethal. The enemy whispers that if a spiritual practice is hard, or if it brings you anxiety, you should simply drop it to find peace. But relief is not the same thing as the peace of Christ. Dropping a heavy cross brings temporary relief, but it leaves your soul completely unprotected. This is where the wisdom of Saint Ignatius of Loyola becomes a lifeline for older Catholics. Saint Ignatius gave the Church the rules for discernment, and his most famous role is a battlefield command. Never, under any circumstances, make a change to your spiritual commitments during a time of desolation. When you feel dry, anxious, or attacked, that is the exact moment the enemy is pressing on you to quit. If you listen to that reasonable voice and abandon your rosary or cancel your confession, the enemy wins. Not because he scared you, but because he convinced you to disarm yourself. Remember, the enemy does not attack what is empty. He attacks what is full. And if he cannot trick your reason, he will target your memory. Stay with me, because the next 2 signs target the deepest, most hidden fears older Catholics carry. Now we move to sign number 4, and this is the one that causes the most intense secret shame for faithful Catholics. Sign number 4 is persistent, blasphemous, or shameful intrusive thoughts right in the middle of sacred moments. Picture this for a moment. You are sitting in the pew. The priest is elevating the host at the altar. Or perhaps you are kneeling in quiet adoration, and suddenly a horrific, violent, or impure image flashes violently across your mind. The shock is immediate. The shame is paralyzing. You immediately pull back from prayer, thinking, how could my mind produce something so foul? God must be disgusted with me. But here is what a good priest would tell you if you brought this to him. Those thoughts are not yours. Saint Padre Pio understood this specific spiritual attack intimately. He taught that the devil can inject thoughts into our intellect, calling them fiery darts. The enemy shoots them directly into your consciousness, hoping you will claim them as your own. He wants you to feel so dirty, so utterly unworthy that you stop going to Mass or stop receiving Holy Communion out of sheer panic and disgust. Do not take the bait. A temptation or a sudden thought is not a sin unless you willfully entertain it. When these thoughts strike, do not analyze them. Do not panic. Simply say, "Lord, this is not for me," and bring your eyes immediately back to the crucifix. Remember our anchor. The enemy does not attack what is empty. He attacks what is full. He only attacks the mind that is actively trying to focus on Christ. And that leads directly to sign number 5, the sudden, fierce return of guilt over an old, long-confessed sin. If you are in your later years, you have lived long enough to have real regrets. Perhaps there is a grave mistake you made 30 or 40 years ago. You brought it to the sacrament of confession. You heard the priest speak the words of absolution. You did your penance, and for decades, you had peace. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, the memory returns with a terrifying vengeance. The guilt feels as raw and heavy as the day it happened. A quiet voice whispers, "Did God really forgive that? Did you confess it correctly? You are still that broken person." This is a textbook spiritual attack. The enemy keeps records. He knows your history, and he knows exactly where the walls of your soul were once broken. When you are drawing closer to God, the enemy will drag up your forgiven past to completely destroy your present peace. Have you mistaken the enemy's accusation for God's judgment? Have you forgotten that when a sin is absolved in the confessional, it is completely obliterated by the blood of Christ? God does not bring up forgiven sins to shame you. Only the devil does that. He accuses you of your past because he is terrified of the grace you are living in right now. But stay with me, because the final 2 signs are where the battle reaches its absolute peak, and it is where the enemy tries to land his final, fatal blow. Now we reach the final 2 signs, and this is where the spiritual battle becomes the most dangerous, because these signs do not target your patience, they target your hope. Sign number 6 is the sudden, overwhelming feeling that God has completely and permanently abandoned you. You are doing everything right. You are going to Mass, you are praying, but the silence from heaven feels absolutely deafening. It feels like your prayers are hitting a brick wall and bouncing back. And in that terrifying silence, the enemy whispers his most venomous lie. See, he is gone. You are completely alone. All of this Catholic devotion is a waste of time. Right now, tonight, you may be experiencing sign number 6 and not even realize it is an attack. But here is what the saints knew. If you are still fighting, God has not left. Saint Teresa of Avila, a great master of prayer, wrote that the devil has the absolute most fear of souls who are determined. She knew that the feeling of total spiritual abandonment often happens right before a massive breakthrough in grace. The enemy attacks hardest precisely when he knows he is about to lose his grip on you forever. And that brings us to the 7th and final sign, the intense temptation to isolate yourself from the church. When the exhaustion hits and the intrusive thoughts crowd your mind, your first instinct is to pull away. You stop talking to your Catholic friends. You sit in the very back of the parish and rush to your car before the final blessing. You avoid making eye contact with your priest because you do not want to admit how dry and broken you feel inside. Are you pulling away from the exact people God placed in your life to protect you? Isolation is the enemy's playground. A sheep separated from the flock is completely defenseless. If the enemy can separate you from the sacraments, from your priest, and from your Catholic community, he has won. He wants you suffering in silence. Do not let him, because the enemy does not attack what is empty. He attacks what is full. So if you recognize these 7 signs in your life right now, what exactly are you supposed to do? How do you fight an enemy you cannot see? Stay with me, because the Catholic Church has given you an arsenal, and it is time to start using it today. You are not a helpless victim in this invisible war. The Catholic Church does not just warn you about the battle. She equips you with a specific, untouchable arsenal to win it. If you have recognized any of these 7 signs in your life recently, you must take action today. First, you must hold the line. If the enemy is pushing you to abandon your daily rosary, pray 1 single decade anyway. If he is telling you to stay home from Sunday Mass because you are just too exhausted, get in your car and go. Your sheer persistence is a devastating weapon. The devil is weak before a soul that simply refuses to quit. Second, run to the sacrament of confession. I know stepping into that box can be terrifying, especially if it has been years or if you are carrying something heavy. But the confessional is not just a place for forgiveness. A good priest will tell you that it is a place of deliverance. When the priest raises his hand and speaks the words of absolution, he completely shatters the enemy's legal right to use your past against you. Bring the hidden things into the light and watch the enemy's power instantly evaporate. Third, use the physical weapons the Church has given you. Bring holy water into your home. Bless yourself and your doors. This is not a superstition. It is a powerful sacramental that carries the living blessing of the Church, designed to drive out demonic influence. Keep a blessed crucifix visible in the room where you sleep. And finally, you must make the prayer to Saint Michael the Archangel your daily shield. Pray it the exact second you feel that sudden exhaustion, that intrusive thought, or that unexplainable urge to panic. You do not fight alone. Heaven's greatest warrior is waiting for your invitation to step onto the battlefield for you. Remember our anchor. The enemy does not attack what is empty. He attacks what is full. He is fighting you so aggressively right now because he is absolutely terrified of the grace God is preparing for your soul. So tonight, I want to give you a specific spiritual challenge. Look up the confession times at your local parish and put it on your calendar before you even close this video. Now, wherever you are sitting, I want to pray with you. Wherever you are sitting right now, I invite you to pray this with me. If you are alone in your room or sitting in your car, speak these words out loud. Let this be the moment you stop running from the battle and stand your ground behind the shield of Christ. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of the living God, I come before you right now, not with a polite request, but with an urgent plea. Open my eyes to the battle I cannot see. I renounce every lie the enemy has planted in my mind, the lie that I am alone, the lie that my past is stronger than your mercy, the lie that my prayers do not matter. I reject them all in your holy name. Lord, I plead the protection of your precious blood over my mind, my body, my home, and my family. Where the enemy has tried to sow division and anxiety, I ask you to pour out your infinite peace. Give me the courage to walk back into the confessional, to bring every hidden thing into the light, and to let your grace completely heal me. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world, seeking the ruin of souls. Lord, give me the strength to hold the line today, because I know the enemy does not attack what is empty. He attacks what is full, and my soul belongs to you. Amen. Remember this. If you are experiencing sudden exhaustion, unexplained family conflict, or intrusive thoughts during prayer, do not panic. You are not losing your mind, and God has not abandoned you. You are simply in a spiritual battle. And the reason you are facing this fierce resistance right now is simple. The enemy does not attack what is empty. He attacks what is full. Stand firm. Hold the line on your prayers. Go to the sacrament of confession. And never make a permanent spiritual decision during a time of desolation. If this message gave you clarity and courage today, please subscribe. This channel exists to help Catholics navigate their faith and prepare their souls with truth, mercy, and peace. I also ask that you share this video with one Catholic friend or family member who might be silently struggling with these same attacks, completely unaware that it is a spiritual battle. And if you have ever sat in the pew and worried that your last confession might not have been valid, perhaps because you forgot something or were too afraid to name a sin clearly, click and watch the video on your screen right now. That one fear keeps more older Catholics away from grace than almost anything else, and you need to know the truth. May God bless you, keep you close to His infinite mercy, and give you peace.